Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 6 of Revenue Talent Talk. I'm here with Michelle and Craig today, joining us from Austin, Texas. Right, Michelle, you're in Austin today?
I am in Austin, Texas. Yeah, it finally dropped below about 100 degrees here this week.
So summer's over, right?
Yeah, I think we've got about 2 more months of that.
So, Michelle, I had a little bit of back and forth. Our head of marketing, Jay, is also in Austin, Texas. And I'm like, dude, we're doing this show the Thursday before Labor Day weekend. That's like, no one's going to be on in the Northeast. He's like, we have people that listen before the Northeast. And just because your summer's over, we have a few more months left down here. So
Yeah,
I
that's
hope,
a fair point.
and I hear we even have some people listening in from Hawaii today too. So
We
maybe it's
do,
those people.
yeah. I have to give a shout out to my number one fan, Daniela Hanna. My mom, if y'all saw me on the live cold calling a few weeks ago, she's an active audience member for us. So tuning in from Hawaii to join us today.
Awesome. That's very cool. That might be our first listener from Hawaii. Maybe we'll go check like previous like show notes and stuff to see if we ever got anyone else from there. But very, very cool, Michelle. So glad to have you today. You are a self-titled, overcaffeinated ex-marketer, right?
Yes, that is correct.
I can't wait to dive into that. But something I ask everyone that comes on the show, I really want to hear like where you started. Like, what was your first job?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, my mom actually had a house cleaning business, and she
Okay.
denies this, but when I was about 6 years old, I started cleaning houses with her. So going in, dusting, doing the easy work. And then my first direct mail job, I was around that age, putting flyers in people's doors as well.
Does your mom maybe deny that just in case like there's like a child labor law like thing that pops up, the IRS ever comes knocking on the door? Maybe that's why that she doesn't tell the story in the same way.
Yeah, I think there's like a, statute of limitations there, but yeah, so I've been hustling since childhood.
So hustling since childhood, that's real. So we get a lot of people that come to us and they're in sales and they want to transition to customer success, or they're in marketing and they want to go into sales, and it's a really tough transition to make, honestly. Like a lot of people want to do it, but very few, I think, achieve it. So I am so interested to hear a little bit more about how you started your career and then how you ended up where you are. Maybe you can give the audience just a little bit of insight, like where your career in SaaS and technology started, where that marketing career first came to fruition for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that I think is kind of interesting is that I lived a couple of careers before I even ended up in marketing. So, I was in real estate, I dabbled in recruiting, I was a CrossFit coach for a couple of years, all kind of overlapping that. And so, I had a very diverse background going into my first official marketing role. Um, but even when I was recruiting, and like freelancing, I just was really really wanting to get into marketing. I love it. I love the idea of it. I love, creating these really interesting moments and engaging with people. And so that led me to Ability, which is a digital marketing agency. And I started there as a paid social coordinator. So even though I was agency, all of our clients were B2B SaaS companies. And so I was on the marketing side of the house there, running strategic campaigns for SaaS clients.
And you moved up quite a bit while you were at Ability, right? You had a couple jumps to the next role, the next job. It seems like you did quite well.
Yeah, thank you. So I started as a coordinator. I was actually the first paid social hire, technically, and then moved up to a senior position over a couple of years and started working with more of the like enterprise accounts.
So let me ask you, what was the point, or what was kind of the moment where you realized you needed to make a change or something was wrong? Or was it like this life moment? Was this big like aha moment?
Yeah, that's a great question, as we like to say in sales, right? So it was a combination of things. One was that I had hit a point in my paid social career within the company that there was a people management supervisor position open. I was kind of slated for that. I had the opportunity to interview for that, and it just didn't in my gut, it just didn't feel right. And kind of parallel to that, had been having some different conversations with folks around sales. And as an extreme extrovert, which is not necessary nor all it takes to be in sales, but as an extreme extrovert, kind of have this set of people skills that I wasn't leveraging as much or really digging into. And so was able to actually, for better or worse, talk to our CEO at the time, and was in a hybrid position. So I did half paid social client work and half sales for about the first, like 6 to 8 months of my sales career. And yeah, that didn't really work out very well.
You picked just looking at your LinkedIn, you picked a hell of a time to make that transition too. Was March of 2020, it says, from a LinkedIn perspective. Was it something that was happening? Was it like pre-COVID, like COVID driven? Was there like, oh, whoops, I made this decision and now like, like the world's collapsing around me?
Yeah, so it was more aligned with, we were, as a company, we were looking to expand into the central market. And I was in Portland at the time and wanted to move to Austin. And so there were a lot of things happening, but it was more so aligned with that. And then something that was really interesting was, as a demand generation agency focused on digital, while selling was tough in a lot of capacities during that time, we also saw a huge shift of budget from in-person events to digital, because people had these massive events budgets and they couldn't use them. So there was a huge shift towards digital. So we had some ebbs and flows, but had some benefits of that.
It's almost like if you tell this story in 5 years, you could look like the great fortune teller, because you moved to Austin like right before everyone else tried to move to Austin, and you shifted from, you were in a digital event marketing space like right then and there too. So like, it seems like you capitalized on the upswing, to say the least.
Yeah, maybe I should head to Vegas and play some poker or something.
So in terms of going from the agency world, you also made another really tough transition that a lot of people talk to us about from times. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say, I want to get into SaaS. How'd you do that? What were kind of the first things that you did when you transitioned out of Mobility?
Yeah, so one of the big things was, realizing there are certain challenges that you have with selling services versus selling SaaS, scalability, people management, etc. And so I knew I wanted to transition into tech, and just started to follow folks that were in the space, and look at like events, look at, a big piece of that was actually like Thursday night sales. I don't know if you know Amy Velas and Scott Leese, but just starting to attend Thursday night sales and hear people talk about different roles and learn and network that way was kind of a huge piece of transitioning. And I would say for anyone looking to change into a new industry, whether that's SaaS or CPG or otherwise, finding the communities and the groups where people are active in that space is a great way to get started.
I think the term we hear often is like, you have to lean into it. You have to really like understand it and listen a little bit before you just want to say, oh, I want to make this change. And like, if I just go to apply, it's going to happen. Well, let me ask you, you went from a director of business development to an SDR. And that's kind of like, titles are important in the world of LinkedIn and social media, and people get really like, it matters. So what was that like, that transition, like going like, ooh, I had this like really cool title to like, it sounds like I'm at the bottom of the totem pole
again. Yeah. So that's a funny one. So part of it was that we had a very small sales team. And so we had more executive level titles at Ability because we were having conversations with execs. So I wasn't, I was a director of myself, absolutely. But so what's interesting is I was in a full cycle. I was in a closing role. And to be completely transparent, when I applied at Postal, I actually applied for an account executive role initially. and started the process. But there were some gaps. One of those being, you know, at Ability, I was pretty much only handling inbound and referrals. So I didn't have that outbound muscle, hadn't, you know, run those types of campaigns. And then there's a difference with SaaS and services, you know, and I'm sure you guys see that probably from your clients as well and what they're looking for. So got the phone call that was, hey, we can't move you forward in this role, but we really like your background. We would love for you to move forward interviewing for an SDR position. And to be like, again, completely transparent, I had to kind of put pride down a little bit. Not even just going through the process, but also, you know, showing up and doing the work and not having, you know, well, I've closed before, and, you know, and hopefully to my team, hopefully, you know, it did never come across that way and I put that aside, but really understanding that there was a lot to learn and, you know, being honest with myself that was a gap in my skill set, and I wouldn't have been successful as an AE that had to outbound without getting that like really foundational experience.
Well, in terms of that gap in your skill set, you talked about finding a community and stuff. What are some things that you did kind of lean into? Like, were there people that you followed? I know you mentioned Scott and Amy. Were there specific groups? Were there books, podcasts? Like, how'd you kind of consume all this information that transitioned into this new space and new role?
Yeah, I feel like there are too many people to follow to list them off. Amy and Scott definitely put a lot of not just good content out there, honestly, just like transparent content, and it comes from years and years and years of experience. A couple of podcasts that I really like are Millennial Sales with Tom Alamo. He's also super cool. We had a little chat, and then 30 Minutes to President's Club. Both of those I think are very geared towards here are actionable things that you can do in your day-to-day that you can think about, that you can implement, which for me is what I look for. And then I have 14 sales books. I'm 10 pages in, sitting right behind me. Y'all can see that. So
is Radical Candor one of them?
You know what? It's not. I've heard that one. But Atomic Habits, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and Fanatical Prospecting are all sitting on that table behind me.
Amazing. I laugh about Radical Candor because back in the day when there were like in-person events, every like VP of sales that sat on a panel and they'd ask about books would say Radical Candor in the final. I was like, I guess I have to read this book at this point. It was pretty good and it worked. It was super helpful. So yeah. Atomic Habits, definitely a really good one too. Awesome.
Yeah.
Michelle,
go ahead.
Oh no, what were you going to say? Sorry.
I was going to say, I hope someday I sit down and finish it.
Now I'm curious, now starting your career not your career, but your, after you went into the real estate world and CrossFit and all that, but starting in that paid social space, does that give you any kind of an advantage in the sales space? Like having that like foundational work that you did, do you tap into those skills at all?
Yeah. So what I was doing, because what I was doing was demand generation, it does give me an advantage in that I know, like, I understand the programs that our ABM and demand gen leaders are running. I've been the person driving those top of funnel leads. So it's kind of funny because there's always the joke about bad marketing leads. Thankfully, like we have some awesome programs. I love our marketing team. But there's always that joke. So I used to be the one driving the bad marketing leads, and now I'm the one on the other end and working those leads. So, but the other thing that's been, in my opinion, an advantage is, one of our buyer personas, Postal in particular, is marketers and demand gen leaders. So while I have not necessarily run full demand gen programs, I've run and understood and presented on components of it. And so I have some knowledge there and some kind of experience there that helps me to relate. And then honestly, even just be able to like get creative with people and, think of campaign ideas.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things we talk about all the time when people are trying to transition into SaaS. We're like, what do you do now? try to find who sells to that persona. And that's probably your easiest way to break into the SaaS world, because you have that knowledge. Of course, it's easier for you to talk to a marketer and hire somebody like you versus like hire an SDR from an HR tech person. You have to teach them all about marketing, and who knows if they'll even be interested in that. Like they don't know what they're getting into. So very, very cool. What's the biggest difference for you switching from selling a service to selling a technology platform?
That's a good question. I think the biggest thing is that just the limitations and what can and can't be done is kind of different, because when you're selling the service, you have like you have people capacity limitations on the SaaS side, but not to the same extent as when you're selling a service. Like you physically have to have the employee that's going to execute on that. And if they're over capacity, then you maybe can't sell that service. Whereas with SaaS, it's a bit different. I think buyer expectations would be a little bit different too, especially right now. I mean, we're seeing a lot of talk around product-led growth, and you see a lot on LinkedIn of people saying, just let me get into the product, just let me see it. I don't want to talk to a rep, which you don't really have as much on the services side, because there's no product to see or to trial out. So that's definitely a difference there as well.
And Michelle, going back to your transition from marketing to sales, did you bring anything from like a tech stack standpoint, or like a tool, or like design, like, or do you use Canva more than like your colleague next to you? Like, is there anything that you brought with you that's really helped you succeed more as a salesperson, or giving you any sort of advantage?
Tech wise, I would say probably not. I mean, in theory, with like, building a personal brand or social selling, or however you want to look at it, like using a social media scheduling tool might be a piece of that. I would say one of the bigger things would be just around copywriting, and understanding copy and adjusting it to personas. But there's also, there's a difference between marketing and sales copy. And sometimes I write some really great marketing emails that are that are supposed to be one-to-one sales emails, but they belong on a marketing thread.
Well, actually, let me ask you that, because I think like I've seen you all over Twitter, I've seen you all over LinkedIn. Like, has that marketing copywriting skill set, like, have you felt that's helped your sales career or even your career in general?
Yeah, I think that, understanding how to write for the people you're trying to grab the attention of is important. Still having your voice, but writing copy for, construction professionals compared to sales professionals, compared to other like young marketers. Like it's all a very different style, and needs and platforms and all of that. So I think that having an understanding of that is definitely a benefit across marketing and sales.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Do you catch yourself sometimes, if you're just writing a post on a social platform, if you're like, oh, maybe I'm not targeting my persona with that, or I'm just like posting the post?
Oh, all the time. I mean, you've seen my posts, like, half of them are just a little random, but I mean, I'd love to be like more strategic. But sometimes I'm showing up just as Michelle, and it's less intentional. But yeah, I think my post that got the most interactions on LinkedIn was thanking Slack for a feature or something. Like, it's wild the stuff people engage with.
Isn't it crazy when you make that post with like there's like zero ROI in it, and you're just like, oh, that took off. Why'd that one take off?
Yeah, and then you're trying to share actual insights and knowledge, and it reaches, seven
Like 30
people, and
people,
one of
two
them is
people
my
like
mom,
it.
who already is a potential customer. So it's like, oh no, did I lose you? Uh-oh, y'all, I think I lost Chris. All right, I lost Chris. I guess it's just the Michelle show for a minute till he gets back on here. Well, do we have any questions in the comments so I'm not just pitching at y'all? Who's still in here? Let's see. A joke. Ronald, I made a really good meme today. I'll send you a meme. So I know one thing, that we were hoping to talk about today are just some tips for transitioning from marketing to sales. And one of the kind of key notes that I had was for anyone looking to make the transition, I'd highly advise talking to 3 to 5 people who are in that role that you're looking or think you're looking to transition into. Because, I think that tech sales is very it's a sexy job. It's what, it's overglorified a bit these days. Are you back, Chris? Amazing. I was just giving some tips on transitioning from marketing into sales. Welcome back.
I love how you just rolled with it, and I think I hope Jay's allowed to go to a doctor's appointment again, because I don't think I did anything on my end. No, that I'm so sorry about that. We were talking about your posts that go viral and don't go viral, and what were some of the tips you threw out while I was gone?
Yeah, so the first one was saying that if you're looking to transition into a different industry, different role, is have conversations with 3 to 5 people who are working in that role, from different companies. Because what I feel like happens is, tech sales it's a sexy role. And so a lot of people want to get into it because they hear about the financial potential, but they don't necessarily understand what the day-to-day role of the role is. They don't understand, what it actually looks like to sit down and make 100 cold calls, or to have, people scream at you or things. And there's a lot of, it takes a lot of discipline to be in the role too, because you really, really have to manage time well. So I think talking to people in the roles you want to be in is extremely important in like any career change.
Who I know you mentioned talking to or joining Thursday Night Sales, but are there any mentors or other people that you followed on LinkedIn that like really excited you, or maybe gave you that caution or insight into sales?
Oh man. Oh, Daniela just dropped a comment here. We'll get back to that. But, again, I think it's a ton of different people. I will say, like, the team at Sell Better by JB Sales, when it comes to tactical content, again, they're awesome. Morgan, well, formerly Morgan, and James and that whole crew.
Yeah.
And then, internally, it's been pretty incredible, because most of the leadership on the revenue side of the org is strong, badass women. So it's been really cool to be in an organization where, I can Slack our VP of marketing or SVP of revenue and have some really, candid conversations and get feedback. And I feel very fortunate to have that strong leadership at the org I'm at.
Let me ask you about, you've had not only transitioned into a new industry and a new type of role, but you got promoted recently too, right? About a month or two ago.
I did. I officially
Congrats.
hit 1 month as an account executive yesterday. So this is first day of month 2 as an account executive for our commercial segment.
What do you kind of attribute to your success? I mean, it seems like I'm assuming things are going well if you got promoted, right, in 7 months.
Yeah, I would hope so. Hopefully it's not a last ditch effort, but I think it's a few things. One is that I think I've been very fortunate throughout my life and throughout my career to have opportunities. And I think it's important to recognize that I have had a lot of opportunities that many people don't get. So that's a piece of it. And then I think just an internal drive for me to keep moving forward, keep growing, keep learning. And then when it comes to, the transitions I made internally at Ability and then, working towards a promotion, for me, it was really important to be clear about what my goals were, what I was working towards, but on the other side of that, understanding what I needed to work on to get there, understanding where, my weaknesses were or gaps were, and just having really, open conversations so that with leadership, we were on the same page throughout the last 6, 7, 8 months of what would need to happen to hit certain benchmarks.
Michelle, I mean, what does the future look like actually for you? Like, where do you want to see yourself go? I mean, a lot of people say they get into sales to make money, but I think so few people, there's usually a layer or two behind why they want to make money. Like, what's it for you? What's the long-term plan?
To be transparent, after the last few years in the world, and then also just all the transitions that I've been through, I don't have a mapped out 5-year plan. So if there's any life coaches, feel free to slide into my DMs. But
oh no, you're gonna get bombarded right now.
It's okay. For me, right now it's honestly really focusing on becoming an excellent account executive, becoming really, really good at the role that I'm in today. And then I think if we were to look a couple years down the road, like sales leadership is definitely potential. I do like working with people. I do like that more of like coaching type of leadership. So I think there's potential for that. But you never know. I might become like a chief meme officer or something if someone's got that open.
If there is a chief meme officer role out there, I might be your competition for it, because that would be my dream. Well, it would be not my dream job, but it's probably a top 10 out there for me. Michelle, what's like one piece of like practical advice you can give somebody, like from an interview process standpoint? Like, what's something that worked really well for you?
Talk to people at the company who are outside of the interview process. So reaching out to people who are in the role, people who work at the company, but who are not part of the formal process, to get an understanding of, because I think every company, they're like, yeah, it's this great and you've got these benefits and it's wonderful. And, and I think it said a lot that you're also interviewing that company for whether they're a fit for you, and that management and that leadership, and whether they're a good fit for you. But I think, poking a couple of people from the organizations that you're interviewing at, if you have the opportunity, is really key to getting a little more insider knowledge.
Yeah, I somebody once asked me, they're like, well, what if they don't answer? I'm like, you probably have your answer about what the place is like to work at.
Yeah, like, and I would say, go ahead.
But message more than one person, just in case, that person was on vacation or something.
Yeah, and I would say too, be human. Don't just go in and don't like spam people with 50 questions without kind of building a little bit of rapport. I've had that happen before, where someone sends me like a novel and like, I don't know you. That's going to take me 20 minutes to respond to. So, but if people reach out and ask about Postal, like, I'm happy to jump on a quick chat or answer questions. And previous companies as well, I did the same thing.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes it's those like connections that like there's no like rhyme. It's like a connection request and you hit yes, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, novel, and you're like, oh gosh. Like you couldn't just say, hey, want to chat? Can I chat to you about like what it's like to work there or something like that? Like,
yeah, give me one. We love consent. Hey, do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? Goes a long way.
I totally agree. So many people miss out on that part when they're reaching out to you, like whether it's a sales pitch or they're like, hey, do you mind if you have a few minutes? Because sometimes you just don't, and there's a better time to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. definitely get a lot of that with sales outreach.
Now, Michelle, I usually ask a lot of guests, it's like, what's their favorite interview question? Now, have you been in that seat where you've been able to interview other people yet?
So I've run like panel interviews,
Okay.
led panel interviews. Favorite question. It's kind of a tough one. I don't know. I'm not like the biggest fan of the, if you were a banana or like if you were a fruit, what kind of fruit would you be, or those kinds of things.
I used to ask a terrible question like that back in the day, and it still haunts me that I used to ask people it. I used to ask people what their favorite color was. And then I used to ask so wait, we can do it right now. What's your favorite color?
Guess.
Ooh, I feel like you're like a sparkle type person, maybe.
Blue.
Maybe, blue. Okay.
All shades of blue. Yeah.
And then the follow-up question would be like, can you act it out?
Oh.
Ooh, see, there you go.
Oh, interesting.
I still cringe that I used to ask people that, but it was if somebody was too buttoned. I used to work at a very buttoned up place, and if they were too buttoned up, and I knew they were like holding something back, I would throw it at them as a curveball to get them to relax a little. And sometimes it worked. Other times people just like really froze up and it got awkward.
Yeah, I feel like if you were asking a creative, like a true creative, that you'd probably get some really fun stuff. But I think that's a challenging one to like act out. I would just be like, my shirt's blue. Boom.
Blue,
done.
I've gotten very sad faces a lot. Sparkles was my favorite answer, and that was an actual answer.
I love that.
Michelle, we're starting to run over on time, but I have one more question for you, or two actually. If you could have one meal, or what is your favorite meal, what would it be?
So I'm going to answer this with two different answers. So one is going to be like the food I crave the most is definitely pizza. But the second part of this is my favorite food is the potato in all forms.
Okay. Potato in all forms and pizza. Well, let me ask you, as somebody who actually has a pizza tattoo, what kind of pizza? Because that matters for me. I'm also from New Jersey, so like we're very fierce about our pizza.
Okay. So it's typically going to be, a build your own, pepperoni, jalapenos, pineapple, black olives.
Oh wow! So you're going build your own. That sounds almost like a Domino's thing.
No, it's like a create your own pizza.
They have like the build your own in the app, and look, I know that. And again, I've been on the Domino's app once or twice. Not proud to admit it, but I've been there. Michelle, where can people find you, and like where can they see some of your great content? Because I think you truly do put out great stuff. And if anyone's looking to transition from marketing into sales or to get into the SaaS industry, you are a must follow. So where can people find you?
I appreciate that. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Michelle Craig. It's like the IN-M Craig PDX. Twitter, Craig PDX. I've become a little more active on there. But yeah, if you have questions about transitioning from marketing into sales, just questions about getting into SaaS sales in general, pretty friendly, pretty open. Please just don't spam me.
Michelle, we really appreciate it. I know you're a little under the weather today, and thank you so much for fighting through it and getting this done. We hope there's some good advice that somebody out there is going to listen to, and maybe you could help be the catalyst that helps them find their next role.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
That's it. Take care, Michelle. We'll talk to you soon.